Wonderful. St Patrick's Well. End of March 2022. Imagine you lived in the middle of a big city, and yet within no time at all you could be up here in the middle of nowhere, literally, with no one except the wild birds and the wild trees. Imagine that, you know. I do it every day, you know. I live in the middle of a big city, Glasgow, and yet somehow I managed to teleport myself. The 8 or 9 miles that it is to here to Kilpatrick, and to, you know, if I go up to the Campsie Fells as well, up to Mulgai, and the train stations to nowhere, you know, that lie at the foots of hills. And so 10 minutes on the bike from my house, from my humble little cave, takes me to the train station. Another 20 minutes on the train, which goes by in no time at all, because, you know, you get your flask out, your notebook, you gaze out the widescreen window, and suddenly it deposits you at the foot of the fells, at the foot of the braes. And then another 20 minutes, which you're not actually conscious of, because the path is so steep that the body is working. And this is the beauty of physical exercise, is that the mind doesn't really have time to think about it when it's doing it. The body's too engaged in itself, in its own essential condition, that of motion, that the mind is sort of relegated to the substitute bench. And so the mind doesn't encompass time like it would ordinarily, let's say if it was carried, as it usually is in a car or some form of transportation, or even if it's walking along flat ground, in the way that man walks nowadays, not the primal walking that you do up here in nature, but the waddling that he does down there in the city, that is aligned with the ego. And so when you're doing that sort of waddling, consciousness is hyper present, in that the ego is hyper present, so you're in a constant state of distraction. When you're physically exerting yourself, and this is the meaning of exertion, is to get rid of the inertia, and the inertia being not the universal constant, because you're no longer aligned with it, but the city and the mechanical environment that defiles you and filthies you. And so when you exert, you get rid of this inert. And in a way, in ridding yourself of the inert, you become art. And this is the animal in its natural condition, is arting, is being art. And so it's a wonderful thing to live in the middle of a big city when you have a bicycle and some imagination. And it does help to have the odd train. I do confess that I have a soft spot for that form of transportation. Forgive me. So I don't want to hear anyone complaining about how they can't get out of the city, because everyone's got an imagination, and last time I looked, everyone's got access to a bicycle.